We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland. On the Majority Report, Calivan. I don't think Dr. West is correct that if your predictions repeatedly don't happen, you change your belief. If that were the case, end of days cults predicting apocalypse wouldn't exist. You can also just retreat into a community of people that will tell you what you don't believe fervently enough, or some outside force is trying to trick you. After all, that's where all your friends are. Will you abandon them? I think you're right. Well, I mean, I know, in fact, I just happened to have done research when I was in school on Millenistic cults, and that is the case. It is sort of fascinating. It's like the world's going to end on January 15th. January 15th comes around and goes like, oh, we did the math wrong.
Yeah, we were supposed to
it wasn't supposed to be 2019.
Yeah.
It was 2029. Because we misread the Sanskrit and whatever it is. But you do need a very tight-knit. I don't think the professor was making the argument that this is going to work on, let's say, that woman I spoke to.
Who's a white nationalist, right?
White nationalist. But I think the idea is, I think that's what his point was. There are really two cohorts of people. One is ones who feel a vague uncomfortability with it, but are maybe buy into a couple of the arguments. And then there are those who are like sort of hardcore at the center of those concentric circles who are surrounded by their own community that reinforces that. And I think his argument there is you just got to fight them.
Yeah, I think it's the the voters who voted for Obama, who then voted for Trump in 2016, is a good example of like, those are the gettable people when, go ahead, Matt.
Well, I was just going to say, and not acknowledging that there's a split there and just saying everyone is white nationalist. I think it's an important caution that he said about the normalization of it. When you say, well, everyone's just racist, actually leads to more racism because you're literally saying that's the norm of it. And I think a lot of Democrats need to, particularly corporate Democrats, need to understand that. Certainly.
And corporate Democrats, they make it about, and I would say like maybe professionals, like the lawyers doing DEI, it makes it about somebody's individual actions. And I think that there is sometimes you create an anxiety with people who may have some racism, right? But can be educated, where they kind of disengage from the debate altogether when you don't make it about systemic issues and you make it about how you interact with somebody on a day-to-day basis in your workplace. That is, I think, the thing that makes people anxious, as opposed to being more constructive. But it also is about the time period that we're in. Like I saw this clip of RuPaul talking oddly about, when his show got to go on the air, Drag Race. And it was during the Obama period where he says things were just more open. And then they begin to contract. And you see it throughout history. He was saying in the 80s, even the gay men he was around with were pretty right wing. Like they had some Republican beliefs. And so I think right now we're in a period of contraction and we have to do everything we can to fight it.
Indiana John. Sam, can I get a shofar for my newborn son, Spencer? Left his best. Congratulations. Welcome, Spencer. Future Majority Report viewer. Although at that time, maybe you don't really actually view it. You just conjure it through the chip that we will have inserted. You can, like, instead of downloading a Majority Report app,
right?
Or maybe you download the Majority app to the motherboard that's inserted right behind your ear.
Yeah, Neuralink. That's, instead of vaccines, we're going to have chips in our brain that solve all of our diseases. Duh.
Wonderful. Really looking forward to that.
Me too.
Did we find that Vance video?
Yeah, I think I did this.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's hold off on that for a second because Newsmax's Rob Finity. It's quite a turnaround. You'll remember how much really like egg prices were such a dominant campaign issue. That, of course, and the Empowerment Control Act that Donald Trump had run on the unfairness of the Impoundment Control Act, which everybody was familiar with, of course.
And also cats and dogs being eaten in Springfield. We know this.
Cats and dogs eaten in Springfield, the Impoundment Control Act, and egg prices. But apparently, over on Newsmax now, egg prices, which incidentally have more than doubled in about 4 months, more than doubled, are no longer an important thing to worry about. Here is Newsmax's Rob Finnerty from last week.
Also important to point out that Donald Trump is not some magical wizard. It took Joe Biden 48 months to ruin the country.
Pause it for 1 second. Literally, I think we've heard Trump supporters refer to him as like a Jesus-like figure. Now, Jesus did small-time wizard stuff like water to wine, no big things like Prince into a frog type of situation. So maybe that's what they're talking about.
Well, didn't Trump say that he was going to end the war in Ukraine on day one?
I mean, the economy, America was in a great position relative to the entire world in the entire Biden lame duck period. We're the only place people wanted to put money. And now, in like a few months, Europe is surging back and we're not doing well.
We're going to have a little bit of period to get the toxic out.
It took Biden 48 months to ruin the economy. It only took me about 4 weeks.
Actually, when Biden came in as president, things were pretty bleak economically.
They don't blame him for COVID and the economy getting hit, but we could have recovered. Well, we did when Biden came into office. Inflation was down relative to other countries in the West, but still people were hurting. It's just as odd that they don't, like, if Biden were president during this massive economic contraction during COVID, they wouldn't be saying this.
This is incidentally the first time that someone who is a Trump supporter has superimposed Donald Trump onto a body that is not that of a bodybuilder.
Yes.
There's Trump's...
Is that Gandalf?
Yes, it's Gandalf. And I thought that was Biden in the image at first.
Yeah, it looks like Joe Biden.
But it kind of looked, because of the slicked back hair.
Generic old guy. Go ahead.
A magical wizard. It took Joe Biden 48 months to ruin the country. Donald Trump can't just fix it in 48 days. He's not a wizard. He can't magically lower gas prices, mortgage rates, food prices, inflation, or egg prices. And to Democrats worried about egg prices today, get over it. And why weren't you worried about the prices of everything else when your guy was in the Oval Office? Why suddenly now, and why egg prices? Under the previous administration, inflation hit 9%. That's the highest since Jimmy
Pause it. Wait a second. This seems like keep that graph up there. If you wanted to make an argument that Joe Biden was bad for inflation, I'm not sure I would use this graph because if Donald Trump is not a wizard, you'll notice like what happens somewhere around, let's see, January, February, March, April, May, that summer you can literally see the economic activity ramping up and people needing like, hey, I want to now buy stuff that comes in containers, shipping containers. Oh, what? Why is this shipping container halfway around the world when it's usually much closer? How come it used to cost $4,000 for a shipping container, now it costs $22,000? You can literally see that happening as the economy is opening up, that all of the logistical problems, and you see that really over the summer. I'm convinced the first part you see is the logistical problems. And then as you get deeper into 21 and in the beginning of 2022, all of a sudden, all of these CEOs go, hey, dude, we can get away with raising prices. This seems to be fairly inelastic, or I should say elastic here. We can get it. Let's ride this thing. And that's where you see, incidentally, the huge jump in corporate profits happen as you're running into 2022. And then at one point, I think like the people start talking about inflation and you see it going, steadily down.
And frankly, Biden had Lena Khan and other, Jonathan Cantor and other people in the administration who were going after the corporations that were doing the price gouging. But they try to make it seem like it's naturally occurring inflation because Newsmax and Republicans represent billionaires and corporations.
And the funny part is, I bet you if you went back to January of 2019, that inflation rate is going to be a little bit higher.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be much closer to where it is today. But here's the thing. When you shut down the economy, as Trump did during COVID, and in part, really, to be honest, COVID shut down the economy, in part because Trump decided to pretend it didn't exist for about 6 months as it ravaged, like literally had refrigerator full of bodies in New York City. When you shut down the economy and people aren't driving, people aren't willing to go to the factories and catch COVID, inflation drops because economic activity has dropped. So I'm willing to bet January good. See if you can find what January 2019, the inflation rate was that month. Certainly higher than 1.4%. I have no doubt. But if you're trying to argue that Joe Biden wasn't doing anything about inflation, it literally is dropping almost all the way, except for one or two blips, into January of 2024. Wait, why does he hold it till March of 24?
That's
weird.
odd. That's odd.
March of 25 right now.
Yeah, for a lot of the recovery from the financial crisis, it was around 2%, but starting around between 2018 and 2019 was creeping back up to around 3%.
Yeah, so twice what it was probably in January 21. Interesting that they stop at March of 24. Now, I don't know if that's just a mistake or if that's a way of avoiding what has happened through 24.
Maybe that's the data that's available from the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Maybe.
I don't know. But still, your point stands is that it shows that Biden was decreasing the rate of inflation.
Exactly. Go ahead.
Mortgage rates hit 8%, the highest since 1981. Gas prices, the national average was over $5 a gallon.
Pause it again. They stopped counting in August of 23 with this data.
Yeah.
After showing it goes down. Now, incidentally, you can ask if you know any oil traders. Joe Biden is credited with breaking the backs of essentially OPEC by using the strategic reserve in a uniquely strategic way.
That's a good thing.
And has refilled now, but the point being that he essentially broke the market.
And the interest rates had started to decline, but the reason that they'd recently dropped is because the forecasts for the economy under Donald Trump were so bad that that's why interest rates recently have dropped. So they're
also,
taking
the Fed
credit
is
for
independent.
Yes.
It's the highest in American history, and none of that can be solved overnight, not even by a wizard. But I wouldn't expect Democrats to grasp any of those simple concepts because Democrats have lost their minds.
Okay.
Let's look at this lunatic Democrat complaining about egg prices. This guy.
Losing his mind, melting down, owned this Democrat.
When Kamala Harris took office, we're short of $1.50 a dozen. Now a dozen eggs will cost you around $4 thanks to Kamala Harris's inflation.
Okay, what? Now wait, did he shoot this in 2019? Like, what's the date on that video?
September 21st, 2024.
Okay, so that's 5 or 6 months ago, if my math is correct. And wholesale eggs now are costing around $8 wholesale. Wholesale is double the retail price that he was talking about 6 months ago. So God knows what the retail price is.
$11.19 for 12 that I'm looking at for Quaker State extra large
I'm not
eggs.
great at math, but that feels like a close to 200% increase in the price of eggs in 6 months.
Well, hold on. You can't blame Donald Trump and his administration for the bird flu and the effects that it's having on egg prices and chicken. I mean, he's not a wizard. You know, that's why the administration is working diligently to hire all the experts that they can in the government. And what are you looking for?
There'll be a little disturbance.
Oh, gosh. There it is.
We're
Yes.
okay with that. It won't be much.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
They fired all the
my
political
fault.
experts.
The plot against the king, Trump was king. He wasn't a wizard. Yeah. Okay.
Jeff Bezos came.
That
Bill-
makes sense. Oh, incidentally, a book written by the head of the FBI.
Yes. Making himself the main character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's quite a savior, this guy.
RFK Jr. And Trump fired all the bird flu experts at the
Well,
CDC, but
we're
then
bringing
they're
him
hiring
back. We're bringing him back. Look, sometimes, no pun intended, but to make an omelet.
To make an
gotta break some
omelet,
eggs.
you're gonna buy Hilldale Farm eggs, 12 count. That's gonna be $13.59, but it's likely out of stock anyway, so don't even bother.
Don't bother.
God.
Well,
Me thinking I'm saving money making omelets at home. Going broke. Go back
So-
to DoorDash.
do you remember where Joe Biden announced that the Department of Justice was going to start targeting law firms that represented people in January 6th cases?
Oh, yeah. This is the lawfare I keep hearing about.
This is, and they were going to start targeting law firms that were representing Republicans who were bringing cases about various sort of elections and whatnot. In fact, when Biden got into office, you'll remember that he said, I'm going to attack the law firms that have been representing Donald Trump in some of these criminal cases because they're very disingenuous. Oh, wait a second. I'm sorry. I'm confused. No, it's Trump, apparently,
You
who
mixed
is
up the old
attacking.
guys. You mixed up the old guys.
I mixed up the old guys. Play this clip.
You would think you'd want to get him down, but we'll get him down.
Mr. President, I just saw you sign executive orders for law firms. One of the law firms was Perkins Coie, yeah, that was the law firm that had the Steele dossier.
Yeah, they had the Steele dossier, they had a lot of other things, and we have a lot of law firms that we're going to be going after because they were very dishonest people. They were very, very dishonest. I could go point after point after point, and it was so bad for our country. And we have a lot of law firms that we're going after.
Yeah. Okay. So Perkins Coie, they have been working some of the attorneys on challenging Trump's ban on trans service members in the military. So maybe it's not that. Maybe it's not the whole Steele dossier part of it. Maybe that's some of it. Or maybe it's the fact that they are currently trying to oppose some of Donald Trump's extremist, hateful initiatives.
Or whatever it is.
Yep.
It seems like the president of the United States should not be attacking law firms and going after law firms, writing executive orders about law firms that he thinks are dishonest.
Yeah.
You know, people in glass houses. That Donald Trump is not necessarily known as, even by his followers, is like, he's just got a reason to lie.
Yeah. I mean, God, I wish a Democratic president would act this way about, you know, say a company that's immiserating people or price gouging. I'd be okay with executive orders targeting, you know, say ExxonMobil or something like that for their crimes of burning up the planet. But we can't even approach that level of competence. Trump's just going after his political enemies once again.
I want to. Do we have any clip on the? We don't on the continuing resolution. Has anybody been? Has anybody asking about it? I just want to give an update on this.
Sure.
We have those tweets, right? That show those. The ones I put in Slack. We've talked about this. The deadline for the government to shut down is Friday night at midnight. Is it Friday night? 11th, 12th, 13th. I think it's Thursday night, isn't it? The 14th?
14th.
So it's technically, I think, Thursday night at midnight. And the Republicans have decided that they're not going to get any Democratic votes, or they don't want any Democratic votes. And so they are going to pass a continuing resolution that's going to take them at least until, I guess, a year, although they're hoping to pass a new budget sometime around September. That was the budget resolution that they passed. We've played clips of Mike Johnson over the past week or two saying, well, we're going to do a clean continuing resolution. And a clean continuing resolution simply says we're going to take the budget from 23, 24, and we're going to make it the budget from 24 to 25. Same budget. Now, if you run any type of business or have a family or have ever dealt with a budget, you know that if you don't expend any more money for things, chances are it's probably a cut in terms of its purchasing power, right? Because cable bill goes up a couple of bucks. Or your rent goes up a couple of bucks, maybe more.
A lot more.
Price of eggs goes up maybe 250% over the course of 6 months. And so this already starts off as sort of like a cut in terms of purchasing power for the government. There's also a problem with that continuing resolution that the Biden administration made a deal back for the 24 budget that we would cut $20 billion of future funding for the IRS. And that's included, as far as I know, in this one as well, because it's just repeating. That's what a continuing resolution does. And some of that money that was like, well, we're not going to spend projecting, year 8 and 9 or 10, spending that money. Well, that starts to come closer to home in terms of what they're expending on. And it's unclear to me, but it appears that the Democrats would vote for a continuing resolution because that would put them in a certain amount of pressure. Like, you've been okay with this budget so far, but it raises a problem for the Republicans because Elon Musk has been cutting the budget.
Yeah.
Illegally. And they need to figure out how they're going to reconcile reiterating that the budget should be X. Forgive the pun.
No pun
Yeah, I was going to
intended.
say blank maybe.
Yes, blank.
It should be Twitter.
But in fact, the budget ends up being minus blank because Elon Musk is out there cutting supposedly the budget, all the waste and fraud or whatever it is. The fraud where no one's been indicted or arrested or charged with fraud, and the waste in which they can't come up with any numbers that last on their website for more than 5 minutes. Here you see a screenshot of part of the budget resolution. And you will see that despite the fact that Speaker Johnson has said this is a clean CR, continuing resolution, in fact, there is a series of slight changes. $0 for the Department of Agricultural programs. In other words, this is line 16. It's going through different lines in the original continuing resolution and saying substitute whatever huge number was there in terms of billions of dollars for zero. $0 for Department of Energy programs, energy projects. In Section 204, by substituting zero for 13,045,000. In Section 530, by substituting zero for 38,414,000. And now, I'm not even sure if that's million or billion because I don't see the original, but those numbers look like million to me. Substitute in Section 542. Now, I don't know what 542, but the point being that there's a series of these things. It is not a clean continuing resolution. The Republicans want to cut the budget. They don't want to negotiate with the Democrats. They should get 0 votes.
Yep.
Not only should they get 0 votes because it's not a clean resolution, but what is the point of passing a budget and fulfilling the duty of Congress to appropriate money if the executive branch is totally disregarding Congress's authority to appropriate
Illegally.
and is illicitly and unconstitutionally cutting, basically doing a line item veto, which they do not have the prerogative to do. So they should not be participating. So call your Congress people. Let's put that number up on the majority.fm site. And give me, what is it, a 202 number where you can get to the switchboard.
202-224-3121. That's the U.S. Capitol switchboard. 202-224-3121.
Call them, ask for the name of your senator in particular and your congressperson and say, do not vote in favor of this continuing resolution. And for your senator, say, do not vote in favor of cloture on the question of voting on this continuing resolution.
We should put this up as a call to action for people, because I think that it's made a difference, the amount of calls that people are getting. And you hear some of these town halls, like I listened to Tom Swazi's, and how many irate constituents he had to deal with after he voted to censure Al Green for standing up for Medicaid and his constituents. Keep calling, folks.
Call those Democrats and let them know this is not acceptable with you. What we're seeing is fascinating because if you look at the polling right now, Democrats, broadly speaking, are in opposition to what Trump is doing as much, if not more, than in 2017, the same time. But you wouldn't know it in the same way because the Democratic leadership, for the most part, seems to have completely abandoned the fight. And in many respects, it's inexplicable because Donald Trump did not return because of what happened in 2017 and 2018. To the contrary, 2018 saw the biggest turnout of Democrats in the history of off-year elections, I think in generations. If maybe, certainly in the modern era.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, the Democratic leadership in the House and the Senate seems completely oblivious. There's only one person at this point who seems to be like actually going out and engaging in an activity, speaking to the public as to basically saying, hey, there's a 5-alarm fire going around. And people are responding to that person. Here is Bernie Sanders in a rally in Altoona, Wisconsin. He also was just in Warren, Michigan. Overflow crowds that were significantly larger than even what Harris got when she was campaigning.
I mean, God, we missed a real opportunity with this guy. To be fair, too, Elizabeth Warren's doing a little bit of rallies. Doesn't get the crowds Bernie does, obviously, but she was, I think, down in Texas over the weekend doing some of this. And AOC is set to join Bernie on the road in the coming weeks.
He was with Sean Fain in Michigan.
Amazing.
But here is Sanders, and he is now out there. He is soliciting from this, I don't know how many people there, at least a couple thousand, at least. And there was an overflow crowd. He is soliciting from these people problems that they're dealing with. It seems so sort of rudimentary, but people seem like, they never have an opportunity to articulate this stuff. Listen to this.
Hold on, what is it? Yes. Terrible, all right? Yes. Hungry? Hunger. All right, let me get some hands out there. Be loud. Got a hand there. Okay, man. Stressful. Stay on that issue, sir.
You're not sure if you're going to be able to keep the heat on.
You're not sure if you're going to be able to keep the heat on. Yes, ma'am. Trying to find a way to plan a meal for your next paycheck comes, ma'am.
Forget about buying shoes and clothes for your kids. You're lucky if you make ends meet paying bills.
Forget about buying shoes and clothes for your kids. Ma'am?
Skipping doctor's visits.
skipping doctor's visit. Okay, I see a hand back there, sir. Yeah.
I'm scared the world's gonna fall apart.
Fear that the world is gonna fall apart, sir.
Am I getting glasses or am I getting them for my kid?
Am I getting glasses or can I get them for my kids? Sir.
Can't plan for the future.
Can't plan for the future. The hand back there, sir.
Psychological warfare.
Okay, psychological warfare. Yes.
You make impossible decisions for your family.
You make impossible decisions for your family, sir.
General insecurity.
General insecurity. Okay. I think you got.
Just giving you a sense of like what's going out there and what's driving people to Bernie's rallies. And, you know, I don't think Hakeem Jeffries is going to get these type of crowds where he goes, but they could try.
They could try.
Or they could make a concerted effort to send people out there. I mean, this is what campaigns do, right? Like the Harris campaign decided to deploy Richie Torres from the Bronx to Michigan. In a million years, I'll never be able to explain that. But the idea of sending politicians around the country makes a lot of sense in general. And there's a lot of people talking about like maybe we should go and campaign in red congressional districts. Yeah. How about like finish the conversation and just go do it?
Or just listen to people. Just listen to their pain. I mean, I hadn't seen that clip. It gets you emotional when you hear what people just want to have their voices heard by a politician that represents them and is going to change their lives for the better. It's so simple.
It should shame every political professional in this country.
It absolutely should. I mean, the Democratic Party, I'm here, like, again, I was on MSNBC last night, and you hear mainstream liberals start to say, like, maybe Bernie Sanders was onto something. Yeah, maybe. Maybe the Hakeem Jeffries method of going and talking to just Silicon Valley billionaires and fundraising to keep up with the Republicans, perhaps that's not the way to go. Perhaps just adding more money to the Democratic Party pile isn't how we got to go about these kinds of things. We need to be listening to people and making them feel heard, and that's what a political movement is, not treating the Democratic Party as a fundraising operation. I understand you have to raise money at some level, but if that comes before all of this, we get the situation that we're in right now with a far-right president and the Democrats just being completely hollowed out.
My advice would be just don't do anything for 30 days.
Lay low.
Everybody pretend like you don't.
We all know the Republicans aren't sincere about addressing that stuff, but the problem is they don't need to be. They just need the Democrats to also not be sincere about it so they can go pick up scraps. And
let's be clear, like, you know, Donald Trump, whatever it is, he doesn't get pinned down. He claims he's going to do everything on it. We got a plan for that. 6 months. 6 months, we got a plan for it. The Democrats did a great job of saying Donald Trump's not part of the people who are failing you. He's in this other group called MAGA that...
He's hated by the establishment that you hate. The Democratic Party and the Republican Party hates him. And this is why you should not vote for him. People are like, oh, sign me up for that.
Did you see the reporting over the weekend of Harris staffers saying, hey, we shouldn't have sidelined Walz and maybe we should have left the weird thing up because
I saw that.
What a effing shock.
Yeah. I mean, Walz is saying it Walz is saying it because he's admitting that they should have taken more risks, is what he said, basically.
Kamala staffers are saying it, and they should say it on record, frankly.
They should, but, you know, they want to get hired.
Well, this part is Titanic, frankly.
What's fascinating is that we saw 3 of those heads of the campaign saying the real problem was the headwinds. They were real headwinds.
Like doing a genocide?
That's going to create some headwinds.
When not giving a shit about, like, telling people not to believe their lying eyes when they go to the grocery store or look for a new apartment.
There were real headwinds, and part of one of the mistakes we made, granted, was bringing in a headwinds machine and turning it on.
And blowing it on people.
Yes, blowing it on ourselves.
Yeah, maybe they should have, like, they spent $1 million on
We thought
Beyonce and a snowblower.
We thought our own headwinds would be diminished if we tricked it by putting extra headwinds. Mm-hmm. Turns out that's not the way to go.
Right.
But meanwhile, I'm off in Europe running somebody else's campaign or, advising Uber. I got a job at Uber, so... And I don't mean driving.
Sounds like you don't like success, Sam.
Yeah.
Just because people have jobs at Uber.
Oh, pretty easy to question the professionals. Look,
Yeah.
let's do something fun, shall we?
You are having an emotional breakdown right now.
Well,
We should just at least talk a little bit before we get to fun about
I was going to say about
this
let's do
Columbia
your
thing.
yeah. Let's do your clip on.
Well, also Trump addressed it. I sent this in our,
Oh, he did?
our chat, but yeah.
All right.
1205.
Well, here's Donald Trump, and then we'll do your clip. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Here's Trump, and when did he do this? Just like moments ago, right?
I think it was 12:05 our time.
Following, and he released this on his own social media site.
He
Incidentally,
truthed out he socialed out the truth, or he truthed out the social. We haven't decided.
got to join my site if you want to find out what the president's up to. So.
Yeah.
Free meme coin. Following my previously signed executive orders, ICE proudly apprehended and detained Mahmoud Khalil, a radical foreign pro-Hamas student on the campus of Columbia University. Incidentally, does not mention permanent resident of the United States.
Yeah.
But let's forget about that part.
He had a green card.
Student on the campus of Columbia University. This is the first arrest of many to come. We know there are more students at Columbia and other universities across the country who have engaged in pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity. Now,
Your best friend just did a Nazi salute at the inauguration, so...
Well, the ADL said that was fine, just like the ADL is saying this is fine.
incidentally, activity here is protest.
Free speech.
And the Trump administration will not tolerate it. Many are not students, except for this student. They are paid agitators who also happen to be students, probably with jobs, who get paid, but not necessarily to do this.
Not for this, but...
I'm adding some of this, incidentally, ladies and gentlemen. We will find, apprehend, and deport these terrorist sympathizers from our country, never to return again. If you support terrorism, including the slaughtering of innocent men, women, and children.
Oh, all the Zionists are out!
Oh, excuse me. Also, parenthetically, did you get where I expanded the rules of engagement that allow us to kill more innocent men, women, and children around the globe?
Yeah, don't worry
Okay,
about that.
close parenthesis. Your presence is contrary to our national and foreign policy interests, and you're not welcome here. We expect every one of America's colleges and universities to comply. Thank you.
Thank you. It's like he's signing off like an email asking to set up a meeting. Mahmoud Khalil, his wife is 8 months pregnant. He was here legally with a green card. He's a Columbia grad student until this past December. He's been helping organize the anti-genocide demonstrations, and he was just taken and disappeared by ICE, where he was picked up from his apartment. There, according to Prem Talker, who's been doing great reporting on this, his lawyer tried to contact officials to find out his whereabouts and was hung up on. And now, reportedly, he is at a facility in Louisiana. As of this morning, that's what has been reported, that an ICE facility that in August 2024, the ACLU did a analysis of specifically this Louisiana facility called Inside the Black Hole: Systemic Human Rights Abuses Against Immigrants Detained and Disappeared in Louisiana. And this is the party that says that they're about free speech.
I mean, even if this guy is being held in a 4-star hotel, the idea that this permanent resident, or really anybody, I mean, you realize if they can do it to a permanent resident, they can do it to a citizen.
And they want you to know
even if
that.
you don't have a pregnant wife. Like, this is un-American garbage.
But Sunday evening, DHS spokesperson Tricia McLaughlin sent a follow-up statement confirming that ICE arrested, that's in quotes, Khalil, you ready for the charge? For activities aligned to Hamas. Not supporting Hamas, not providing material support to Hamas, just activities aligned to Hamas. That's how vague this is. And in other words, he's arrested for no reason. Emma was on Ayman Mulladine's show last night on MSNBC. Let's play that clip.
Emma, I'll start with you and what you make of this crackdown on free speech with this very alarming and dangerous arrest of Mahmoud Khalil, a person who has a permanent residency here, but also a student.
Well, it's deeply disturbing. I mean, I'll start by saying that Donald Trump and his administration, when it comes to their immigration crackdown, they're reclassifying just people who may not have full documentation when they came over the border as criminals. So it justifies deporting them en masse or detaining them en masse, which is what we are seeing as they call them criminals. And they're applying that same playbook here to a crackdown on dissent on Palestine. And frankly, the Democrats need to show some mettle and draw a contrast with Donald Trump here, because, you know, people say sometimes fascism is colonialism turned inward, where the chickens come home to roost at the end of the day. If the Democrats don't stand with
Can we go to the second
basically
question?
a majority of their bases right now,
the part
Gallup
I
had
wanted. Is the part drop side uploaded? You can just go to their. This wasn't necessarily the exact part, but yeah, I mean it's.
The point remains that this dynamic that they're applying here, they're going abroad, and this is the way it works, right? You start with the most marginalized people who are in the country. You create a justification. You keep that justification broad enough so that it can begin to be applied to greater numbers of people.
Right.
I mean, if you can deport an undocumented immigrant based upon a crime and criminalize as opposed to a civil punishment for crossing the border, then you can deport someone who is a legal immigrant. And if you can deport someone who's a legal immigrant, you can deport a person who is a permanent resident. And if you can deport a permanent resident who is theoretically has all the same protections under the Constitution, and not just deport, but disappear.
Right.
Like literally for 24 hours, no idea where this guy was. You can do this with citizens. It's just, this is the way they do it. Here's that clip.
Up as defenders of free speech. Kathy Hochul here recently at Hunter College removed a job posting for a Palestinian studies teaching position, saying she wanted to be sure anti-Semitic theories would not be taught. It's not like they have a very good track record on this either.
No, but they should. And
yeah,
I point to what I said earlier about the Democratic voters are not aligned with how the leadership is responding here. And I think we can demand more of Democrats right now. There was a poll in CNN in February that said that over 70% of Democratic voters are unhappy with congressional Democrats right now and how they haven't stood up to Trump more. And I think that goes hand in hand with the Israel debate here. How can we draw a contrast with Donald Trump and his authoritarianism? When the Republicans talk about free speech, what they mean is, can we say slurs on the internet again?
Correct.
Can we feel okay saying
can
the
we celebrate
R word?
Christmas?
I mean, really, that's what it is. And then, but for the Democrats and for the left, the anti-war movement has always been an integral part of social progress, particularly on college campuses as well. So when we're trying to combat Trump, drawing a contrast is as important as anything. And I think to bring young people back on board who have been galvanized by this, seeing images of slaughtered children over and over on their phone. I mean, there was a letter written by 99 physicians, nurses back in October to Vice President Harris and Biden at the time. And they said that at minimum, 118,000 Palestinians have been killed. That is a lowball estimate and much higher than the, 47,000 that people are still using at this point. This is an untold slaughter, and Amnesty International calls it a genocide, as does Human Rights Watch. The Democrats have to reckon with how young people have seen the leadership of the party accept this and then move forward in a more positive direction, because they can, because the voters want them to.
John, there was an...
And we should say, there's a lot of polling now that shows that Democrats have become more sympathetic with the Palestinian cause than the Israeli cause here.
I cited it on the show that it came out maybe 3 or 4 days ago. Gallup polled Democrats on this. 59% is the majority opinion in terms of who you're more sympathetic with, the Palestinians or the Israelis. Now it's 21% down for the Israelis. When you look at the general public, that gap is narrowing, but it's more aligned with where independents are. Shocker, Republicans sympathize with the Israelis much more. So my point there, and I was just trying to be a bit strategic because I know I'm speaking to an audience where they're more Democrats that are paying attention. But good on Eamon, by the way, who opened that segment with this story. I mean, it's a shame that his show is getting sidelined because he really has been a phenomenal voice for the Palestinian people. But the fact that Kathy Hochul is removing that job posting and that you have Democrats engaging in this suppression of speech opposing the slaughter in Gaza, it's not in their self-interest. Even if you don't care about Palestinian children, it is not in the self-interest of Democrats to continue to go down this road. And I wanted the audience to know that if you are feeling a little bit queasy about entering into this debate and it's not something you fully understand, but you see how Palestinian kids are being slaughtered right now, know that you're not alone, that Democratic voters are changing with you, even if the Democratic leadership isn't representing your interests on this front.
Is bought and paid for on this issue.
Right.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, has Chuck Schumer said anything? He was talking about Edmund Pettus Bridge yesterday. No tweets.
Yeah. Yeah.
They gonna say anything at all? No, they're not, because their silence is paid for already.
Well, the Baileys live in Long Island, and they don't pay attention to what goes on in the crazy hippie universities.
Yeah. I guess they don't have phones or TikTok or the internet or anything.
Oh, no. No, they just got cable.
I mean, I think that's a big part of it too, that Democrats don't know how to respond in the internet age. Like,
they're not cutting cable. They actually just brought it into their home.
Like that Newsom thing that happened where they basically were Charlie Kirk and they had that conversation where he threw trans kids under the bus. That was brought up on that show last night too. That's traveling. And like, did they really think that politics, it's like the 90s where they can just do some sort of popularist pivot and people don't associate them with the weakness that it displays, and the flip-flopping is way more salient.
That is the whole point, is that is a perfect sign that guy doesn't know how to do politics.
Yeah.
You can do very well. I mean, I remember when Rudy Giuliani was America's mayor, and as soon as he went up to New Hampshire, it was like just a crap show for him when he started to run for president.
Right.
Gavin Newsom's running into the same problem because he's like, well, I've been able to sort of like ride this, and Cuomo has the same delusions. Gavin Newsom's like, I've been able to sort of like create this image that I'm this, blazing liberal, and I've got to temper this.
Right.
And the opportunity to do that type of thing is much less than it used to be. In fact, that's what got Kamala Harris in trouble too.
Exactly.
Had Kamala Harris just simply stuck by her guns and said, you can disagree with me on this. You can disagree with me that in prisons in California, we give health care because we don't want people to die in prisons. And so we give health care. And health care under Medicaid is defined, includes trans care. And you could argue with me that you're wrong, that those two people who have ever gotten that care, the tiny amount of tax dollars, you could say that's wrong, but I'm sorry. This is what the law is. This is what I believe in. If you have a problem with that, okay, that's your right. Showing that kind of strength, Democrats don't understand. 100%. And the funny thing is like the greatest triangulator in the world, Bill Clinton, was going around saying strong and wrong.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it be. And that's the one lesson they didn't seem to even get from that era. Everything else, the triangulating, the backing off stuff, the trying to change people's perspective on, like, why he's being impeached. They all have that, even though they don't have the underlying opportunity. But the idea that Gavin Newsom goes out and thinks that's the way to do this, he's a moron.
Yeah.
He's a moron.
It is.
It just tells me the guy does not have the political chops to go outside of his tiny sort of like bubble. Now, California, huge state, fifth biggest economy in the country. He does not know what it's going to take to win as president against Republicans. He's won many times in a state where there is no real Republican challenge.
Yeah. Also, you mean fifth biggest economy in the world?
Economy in the world. Did I say in the state?
But Newsom is, you said in the country. But Newsom is doing the popularism thing, right? It's like the Matt Iglesias, like, we just gotta look at the polls. Everything's based. We worship the polls, and we can't change them as politicians, apparently. But if the polls say this is the issue we should go after, we should support, then we should do that. I mean, and sometimes that's the case. Like universal health care polls very well, but they don't use that as their ballast to move forward. They just use it to marginalize trans people and throw them under the bus because it doesn't cause them to change their class interests.
But it's not. The polling is not even clear on this issue. First of all, people say as an issue they rank it as low as possible, given a
21 out of 25.
And then if you again, you can ask poll questions a lot of different ways. But if you ask, there are one I think an irrelevant way, which is like which party you trust on LGBT issues, Democrats walk away with it. But it's then you just get into the Matt Walsh style polling things that Democrats like this like to react to, because I think Gavin Newsom, when he takes this issue on trans people, he's not caring about voters. He's caring about rich people who are like, Democrats are a little bit too social justice-y. Can you be my person who's going to walk away from that? And Gavin Newsom's like, yeah, of course I can.
This is a disease that exists throughout corporate culture. Like, I mean, I just remember even in TV, like the idea is like, we want to attract we want to get 18 to 25-year-olds. So we're going to put on exclusively 18 to 25-year-olds. And I'm like, when I was a kid, I watched people who were older than it was about the stuff that they were doing that I was interested in. And it's just that you can sell idiots. And a lot of these donors, I mean, we can see that the wealthiest man in the world is a effing idiot, driven literally by narcotics and therapeutic drugs, and maybe some
post-apartheid trauma.
Yes.
And daddy issues.
And but rather than argue with your billionaire funders, they bring something up, you go out like a trained monkey to show that you can do it. And your consultant class advisors, they look at these polls, and rather than thinking, wait a second, what's more important than something that was the 21st reason why Democratic voters may have voted in an election? Maybe it's more important to show leadership. Yes. And maybe the way that you show leadership is to take an issue like that and show why people should change their minds.
It is a cynical view of the American public that basically treats them as cattle that can be herded around based on polling numbers, as opposed to leading from what you believe in and seeing how that follows. It's such a stark contrast to Bernie Sanders asking people in the audience about what they're going through economically. That is taking the voter seriously. And part of the biggest problem that the Democrats have is that folks feel rightly that they're talked down to by a guy like Gavin Newsom, who looks at a spreadsheet and says, okay, transport's not popular. I don't really care about trans people. I'll throw them under the bus, with Charlie Kirk, who helped bus people on January 6th to...
Let's play a clip of Charlie Kirk. Do we have Gavin Newsom on Charlie Kirk saying this stuff?
We played it already on
Oh,
Thursday.
we did? Yeah. Let's play that other clip I just pulled from Charlie Kirk. I wonder if Gavin Newsom's okay with this.
Yeah.
I wonder if Gavin Newsom is okay with going on Charlie Kirk for this. This is Charlie Kirk. Now, to be fair, this was almost a year and a half ago. So this is almost 18 months ago.
He must have changed.
I'm sure he's very different now.
Was Gavin's son listening to this?
Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. Now, I don't like generalizations. Not every Jewish person believes that. But it is true. The Anti-Defamation League.
This is from a clip, a video he did.
I heard Matt laughing in the background.
Every Jewish person believes that. But it is true. The Anti-Defamation League was part and parcel with Black Lives Matter. It is true that some of the largest financiers of left-wing anti-white causes have been Jewish Americans. They went all in on woke, and it wasn't just ADL. It was some of the top Jewish organizations in the country. Jewish.
Was Karl Marx a Jew too? I mean, come on, let's play the hits, Charlie. And it would be one thing if Newsom went on there.
I think Gavin Newsom should answer whether or not he agrees with that, and he intends to keep going on to platforms like that.
Or maybe be adversarial. Like, it would be one thing. No, he had Charlie on his show. Newsom's
I'm sure then
show.
I'm sure he had the opportunity to ask Kirk that question. Did he ask him that question?
I don't think
Will you play that clip? Will you play the clip where Gavin Newsom, governor of California, on his podcast, had Charlie Kirk on and really grilled him? Play that clip.
Oh.
There we go.
But what Matt is referencing is that
his son.
He says in the interview, Newsom, that my son loves your show. Basically, my son watches it.
Like his 13-year-old wanted to like stay home from school to like.
Is that his kid with Kimberly Guilfoyle?
That's amazing.
I mean, 13 years, maybe 13 years old. I think might be a little. I think they were divorced prior, but.
But I'm so shocked
interesting.
that a guy like Newsom, who was once married to Kimberly Guilfoyle, who was just with Donald Trump Jr. and was at the Republican National Convention screaming her damn head off, like that he doesn't have core left-wing principles.
Well, at least Newsom, I mean, I understand kids rebelling against their parents. That happens.
Sure.
I, of course, would probably take a hammer and pound my hand until it was like incapable of doing anything if my child, 13-year-old child, said, I'm a fan of Charlie Kirk. But I'll tell you what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't say, let me show you what a great guy he is. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to have him on, and I'm not going to absolutely grill him on some of the horrible things he said over the years. Like planes falling out of the sky because of black pilots. Like Jews are funding, hate white people. I mean, we could probably go on and on and on.
Yeah.
I don't think I would say, wait a second. Let me have him on my show, and I'm not going to make him account for any of that stuff, but I will get you a Charlie Kirk mug.
Yeah.
That guy. You know, they reached out to us many, many times for stuff over the years.
Who did?
The Newsom campaign people.
Oh, really?
Back maybe, I don't know, it was a year. I don't know. I have a half a dozen emails from like half a dozen people like, do you want to be on a conference call with Gavin Newsom and blah, blah, blah. And I'm, no.
I fundamentally mistrust politicians who beg to come on this show, and there are some of them.
Let's do something light, shall we? Now, I know, let's check in with the TYT alum, Jimmy Dore.
Oh.
Who has really come full circle. And this is like, you know who else did this was RFK. Same thing. Like RFK was a renowned environmentalist. Helped clean up the Hudson River. But now it's like we don't talk about climate change. It's clean water, clean air. And Bobby Kennedy, during the campaign, at one point, I think it was Jordan Peterson, he told, like, you know, that climate change starts to see as like being an authoritarian push. This is Jimmy Dore basically, I don't know, closing the loop. He's given up on single-payer health care. Bobby Kennedy is explicitly against it. Dore has been a supporter. Now, the way that Jimmy Dore said excused Bobby Kennedy's essential, I wouldn't even call it, bloodthirsty Zionism, is, this idea that we need to pound the Palestinians into submission. Is that he's in charge of healthcare. So his position on foreign relations doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what would matter if you're in charge of healthcare? Single payer healthcare, basically the staple of your supposed leftism.
I mean, he didn't.
No,
he supported Tulsi over Bernie because he said she was better on that issue, which is not true.
It's a foreign policy that I really care about. I'm really getting into. I'm
She
walking
doesn't have
about
a
it.
problem with the private health insurance option, which is sort of arguable. I mean, I think you never really figured out how you would deal with doctors opting out of Medicare. But I've always suggested that you could basically say 70, 80%, 90% of your billing has to be to Medicare. And that's you want to maintain private insurance for your billionaires, fine. But that's only 10% of your practice. The rest of the time, it's got to be Medicare, single payer Medicare. And that's a nice interim position. He never had that level of tiny, I don't even say sophistication, thought that he put into
His
it.
brain would overheat if he.
But then when the guy in charge of healthcare in this country is nominated and explicitly is against single payer healthcare, says people love their private insurance, on and on, he has no problem with that. Well, here he is just knocking off the last thing. Not only, incidentally, the Republican Party right now believes that maybe there is climate change, but it's not man-made. Jimmy Dore goes back to Republican position from 2010 in this one.
Journals are corrupted and how they can corrupt doctors at the. After living through.
Oh, pause it. Did you see the thing that says
Russiagate-
climate change, right? Okay, go ahead.
After living through Russiagate and after living through COVID, the Ukraine war, the Syrian war, 20 years of Afghanistan, I am now doubting climate change, especially since I found out that how easily medical journals are corrupted and how they can corrupt doctors at the top and all the way down to your local doctor and pharmacy. They can control and corrupt them to where they wouldn't
Pause
give you
it.
ivermectin.
Now,
this is a paranoiac.
Certainly, we have seen doctors, because of drug regulations, end up being incentivized to push pills that aren't necessarily safe. You see fraud. You see this with pharmacy benefit managers. That's a middleman that's not necessarily there. But these are cases, and there's some systemic problems with it, some which are fraud. The idea that climate scientists are making, just rolling in the dough systemically.
Oh, yeah.
Big climate scientists.
I mean, this conspiracy goes back really far.
Well, it goes back, decades. Even. Well, here, put up this article.
I mean, this
just for a second, so we see the headline.
Yeah, it goes back so much so that honestly, big climate scientists infected the highest level of our energy
Not that
production.
one, the one that Emma just sent.
Yeah, that basically this conspiracy is so extensive that they infiltrated Exxon 40 years ago.
Weird.
It's so odd.
That's almost 50 years ago
Actually, now
now.
it's almost 50 because this is from 2015. There was an investigation into ExxonMobil's practices
That's
in the
what's
70s.
known as a limited hangout. They sort of admit that they know climate change is happening to allow them to continue to pursue profits that would cause more climate change.
Yeah, and they even said in their internal
Yeah, you're not
documents
thinking
that they were causing it, which is obviously what you would say if you were trying to cover up the real profit motive, which is the climate scientists making money off of this decades ago.
all the way down to your local doctor and pharmacy. They can control and corrupt them to where they wouldn't give you ivermectin. I caught the editor of the British Medical Journal bullshitting and lying on Twitter, and I found out he was being funded by Big Pharma, and he was lying about COVID. It was lying. He wasn't getting it wrong. It's just like the proximal origins paper. They said that definitely the virus came from a lab in Wuhan, and then Fauci throws a couple of $1 million, and they go, oh no, it came from a wet market. I'm sure you can buy off a climate scientist just as easily. I'm skeptical now because all the predictions that people like Al Gore, John Kerry, they keep screaming at the top of their lungs how serious this is and how there's not going to be any ice in the Arctic and the coral reefs. And now the coral reefs are bigger than ever. None of their
Pause it for a second. Let's just start with Google ice mass in the world and see if you get one where, let's just Google ice mass, because that's where he started. Ice mass. And just the size of ice mass, something to that effect. Change in ice mass. Let's see. Yeah, change would be good. Let's just see. I mean, I don't know. I mean, to be fair, this has taken us almost like 30 seconds to do it. Ooh, weird. Ice mass is decreasing worldwide due to climate change. Well, big Google's been bought off. We can scroll down. Let's see who else has been bought off. NASA.
Duh.
NASA. Let's see. Antarctica. Yeah, look at all those pictures. Hold on. Really, incidentally, that's from NASA, right? Those pictures of Antarctic ice mass loss over the past 22 years. Yeah. These are the same people, incidentally, who faked the pictures of us going to the moon. So I don't think it would be too hard for them to do it with Antarctica. Okay, now to be fair, that took like 30 or 40 seconds for you to find that. I'm sure if we were to dig in there, we would find somebody, some, a climate, heterodox climate scientist who is, saying, well, actually, what we're not seeing is the ice underneath. It's actually just the ice is flipped, and there's actually more ice mass there. I've actually I've done this test in my bathtub. All right, and let's go to the coral reefs. Coral reefs experienced significant bleaching and other damage in 2024. Keep going down. We have seen, and incidentally, bleaching is not something that a reef decides one day, like, I want to go blonde. It is another way of saying that the heat has basically killed the coral. It has turned it white. It is no longer a living thing. Now, so I'm looking around like, where did he get the idea that the size of the reefs have grown? Like there's any positive notion. And so I went down, keep scrolling down. You may find it here. New report in Great Britain shows coral cover it has increased in all three regions of the Great Barrier Reef and is at a regional high in 2 of the 3 regions, according to the report. This is a function, and go to this story, that they have been basically changing the rules about fishing around here. And that the introduction of more fish into this area, extraordinary mitigating things, have helped not only turn the tide, but have mitigated the causes of the detrimental effects of climate change. Scroll down on this. You will see that it's also happened in here. It brought the Northern Hemisphere summer record, only now surpassing. Keep going down. Keep going down. Bad bleaching, bad water quality. Go down. Keep going down. You will see that they're talking about they have stopped the fishing in this area. This one is down in the Gulf of Mexico, and a beacon of hope. Keep going. Despite high mortality in some regions and the bleaching, the report finds the health of some reef sites improved for the first time in 5 years. This positive development correlates with an increase in fish populations in many places. According to the report, greater enforcement, closer regulation of fishing has allowed these species. Now, why are they doing this? Because they are trying to mitigate the effects of climate change through regulations, which is, of course, Jimmy Dore would not trust in the first place. Same people these regulations aren't coming from private industry, incidentally.
Deregulation, that's
The
called.
report stresses these positive signs amount to a small step forward in a massively affected and vulnerable region. The overall health remains poor. Keep going down. Keep going down. If global warming continues, bleaching and extinction of species will continue. There's no doubt about it. All right, go back to Jimmy Dore explaining why, when he read one blip in the improvement of coral reefs, it's proof that climate change is not real.
Can I just suggest before we play this that it's easier to corrupt with money political commentators than it is every doctor and climate scientist?
Now, because all the predictions that people like Al Gore, John Kerry, they keep screaming at the top of their lungs how serious this is and how there's not going to be any ice in the Arctic and the coral reefs. And now the coral reefs are bigger than ever. But none of their predictions have come through. And none of those people who are screaming the loudest about climate change ever call for the reduction in the biggest carbon emitter in the world, which is the U.S. military, 800 military bases around the world. When John Kerry and Al Gore said
actually, now they use it as an excuse. They'll need it because of all the climate disruption.
Does Jimmy still live in California? Because there was a pretty enormous disaster that just happened. These massive.
That was because of lesbian fire.
I forgot that it's because Karen Bass is a black woman.
Loudest about climate change ever call for the reduction in the biggest carbon emitter in the world, which is the U.S. military, 800 military bases around the world. When John Kerry and Al Gore says we have to shut down 800 military bases because climate change is that serious, I'll believe them. When Barack Obama says that oceans are rising and then he buys 2 beachfront properties, I don't believe them. When Bill Gates says that climate change is the biggest serious
threat, let's just talk about, listen, I'm certainly not going to defend Barack Obama's lifestyle post-presidency, but there's a reason why it's almost impossible to get insurance now.
Yeah.
If you live on the coast. There's a reason why they're canceling insurance, why they canceled all that insurance in California, why they canceled all that homeowner insurance in Florida. It's not because it's a conspiracy by the government to control people in some fashion. It is because insurance companies don't want to lose money. And something has dramatically changed about our preparedness as a society in those most vulnerable areas to something that they don't want to make money from anymore. They don't feel they can. I mean, you can choose Barack Obama buying beachfront property, 2 houses, or you can look at the massive amounts of data from companies whose literal business is to bet that bad things won't happen to people on the coast. And they're saying, we're not going to take that bet anymore. Go ahead.
Barack Obama says that oceans are rising and then he buys 2 beachfront properties, I don't believe them. When Bill Gates says that climate change is the biggest serious threat and then he takes a private jet to Davos and comes up with an idea to ban gas-powered lawnmowers, I don't believe them.
Well, you can list a bunch of people who are Democrats or who are controversial. And once you say those names, I mean, I just stop thinking, basically.
Ted Cruz, I believe him.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
moron.
When Jimmy Dore believed in climate change, did he buy an electric car? Should we not have believed him? Because he wasn't going completely carbon neutral? I mean, when Jimmy Dore said, despite the fact that he was, predicting that Hillary Clinton had Parkinson's from his his vast medical experience, should we not have believed in single-payer healthcare back when he believed in it, just because he was such a moron about diagnosing people with Parkinson's or thinking that the Clintons had assassinated a Seth Rich, or that Peter Thiel wouldn't be that big of a deal on the Supreme Court, or that there was no chance for 3 Supreme Court justices to be appointed by Trump?
Or Lava Jato is getting rid of corruption in Brazil.
Should we have said single payer healthcare is obviously a bad idea because of that? No. This is just a guy who's pivoting to make sure that he subscribes to all right-wing orthodoxy.
Yep.
That's it.
That's it.
I wonder, did he criticize Trump's expansion of those measures to allow for more killing of civilians? Because he certainly never credited Biden with contracting them. Certainly never credited Biden with shutting down the drone programs that Trump had. Or, for that matter, probably pulling out of Afghanistan.
Well, he did just release a video where he said Mike Johnson is in the closet. So,
oh, all right. Well, fair enough.
I think he's getting around to that stuff.
I wonder if Mike Johnson's paid off his son. We don't have time to do any.
This is where I wanted to. You just are too not into doing your Jubilee thing. Huh?
No, we're going to do the Jubilee stuff. We'll do it tomorrow, but people can go watch it.
But Hassan's going to scoop us. Don't you understand? He said he's doing the live stream today, reacting to it.
Hassan can do it, but he's not going to get my reaction to it.
I guess that's true. If you want that, you got to come here.
That's right. We have the exclusive on Sam Seder's reaction to Sam Seder's appearance on Jubilee. And we will be announcing when we were going to release that video shortly.
Probably sometime in July.
Exactly. It's going to follow my breakdown of what it's like to travel to Disney World with your kids.
Yeah, that's still
3
still
years
pending.
old. Oh, Twitter's been hacked by Anonymous. That's according to Saks Repair. I don't know if that's true, but Twitter's been down multiple times today.
Elon said that there was a massive cyber attack going on. It's sort of working now, but it's been in and out for the last 5 hours.
But we don't know if
we
that's
should do a
true.
story on this. Let's go. Let's just do a quick video on this because
Okay,
this is important.
Yeah.
The man who is in charge of government efficiency right now, who's going around willy-nilly using his experience in cutting the Twitter platform, is now in charge of your kids' healthcare information, the Treasury Department's all of the data on American taxpayers across the country.
Your bank information, your home addresses, all of that, this guy has access to.
They have almost probably now scraped more data than, if they combine it with the data they already have, more data that has been compiled than maybe any entity that exists. They're going around saying, trust us. We know what is important. They cut the people working on Ebola. It was only down for a couple of days and then supposedly back up, although the people who say who were working on the Ebola say it wasn't back up. They fired 200 folks at the CDC who they needed to try and hire back because there's a massive measles outbreak in Texas. I mean, Texas and New Mexico now. Sorry.
Yeah.
I had to update that. They fired people at the USDA who were responsible for containing the bird flu. All of this sensitive stuff is by the guy who owns this platform. You put up on the screen, head over to what used to be called Twitter, but it's now called X. Let's see if we can get there. Go ahead, put that up on the screen. And
it's back now.
Is it back?
But it's been down.
Apparently.
I got like a packing error, some type of thing at some point. Like it literally was
all day today.
Yeah.
Twitter has been apparently hacked by Anonymous. Now, maybe it's Anonymous that's taking credit for it. Maybe we don't know. But here's the thing. Do we really think that those hackers are the most dangerous hackers in the world? Here's Elon Musk. There was and still is a massive cyber attack against X. We get attacked every day, but this one was done with a lot of resources, either a large coordinated group or a country's involved. Tracing. So he's following the X model for the United States government. Now, it is a problem when Twitter is down because then you can't, for me personally, I know one of the things is that I forget that I'm Jewish for an extended period of time because I don't have as many people telling me I'm a Jew.
They're affirming you.
They're affirming my Judaism. That's one of the things I missed when Twitter was down today. Some of the stories that I wanted to see. I follow some reporters on there, although increasingly I go to Blue Sky. Because they haven't fired all the people who are supporting their site.
I know. I do miss getting threatened with sexual assault. I mean, that's what this platform is for.
You don't get a chance to get fed all sorts of right-wing nonsense. And so, but you know what? You make it through the day. If this happens to the U.S. government, or if people get access to the enormous amount of data that Elon Musk and what's his name? Big Balls? Whatever the name of the 15-year-old or 20-year-olds that Elon Musk, or 22-year-olds or 24-year-olds or college students or interns.
I get Big Balls mixed up with the guy that's pro-eugenics.
Yeah.
Different guys? Right, thanks.
Captain Incels, whatever the guys' names are. It seems to me like it's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, I would think so. It seems that Anonymous is taking credit for it. We shall see, but that would be pretty badass if they were the ones that crashed Twitter. It shows how this data isn't necessarily protected in the way that you think it is.
So enjoy Twitter, and then also think well, if they can do this to Twitter, what can they do with the Twitterfied or Xified U.S. government? Apologies to the alphabet. Noel from San Francisco. Would Musk admit it if it wasn't attacked? Yeah, I mean, I guess if we're going to put it out, but I guess we're going to have to just trust Musk that it was attacked.
Well, he's
by perhaps a country. Or maybe somebody somebody forgot to pay the bill.
He's previously claimed that there have been DDoS attacks on the platform as a way to kind of obscure his own incompetence. But I don't know. We'll see. Breaking news. But initial claims are that Anonymous did it. Still unconfirmed.
He must be also panicking because apparently Tesla sales are down so much in Europe now.
Oh yeah.
That the company, which makes its money, incidentally, by selling carbon offsets, may not have enough carbon offsets to sell to make any money.
Yeah, that's this dirty little secret about Tesla and Elon Musk is that he has no commitment to combating climate change because even though his cars are electric, how they make their money these days is by selling carbon credits to companies that are going over the limit. So that they can basically escape EU fines and they can make more money. So whatever effects electric cars are having on reducing the effects of climate change are offset by the fact that they're selling that to companies that are polluting our environment.
All right, let's read some IMs and then we'll get out of here. I have obviously blown through 2:30. Regular shoe Mike, release the Cedar cut. Kowalski from Nebraska. The oil shock was most likely a result of trying to figure out how Russian crude was going to fit into the market and OPEC trying to squeeze the Western alliance for a lot of reasons, mostly fracking production cost in the U.S. Economic floor for gasoline now is likely $3 in the Midwest. You can't operate fracking wells below $60 a barrel there, so there's a floor for our energy cost. West of the Rockies, there's transportation costs and issues which is where we saw the extreme prices, which realistically isn't fair in this analysis. Sam, I saw the Jubilee video. Thanks once again for putting Kansas in their place. Emma, out here on MSNBC, you folks are reaching people.
Thanks.
My bourbon gamer. Sam, it's good to hear your voice surrounded by sane people. Also, are you sure the government doesn't pay taxes to itself? John from T-Burg. I get what the commentator is saying, but as someone who grew up in a conservative Catholic household and was surrounded by a support system that fed into that, being in the real world workforce and being constantly presented with different experiences and perspectives, data, time after time, did change my belief system. Kyle from the Shire. What a diverse group of people they had on the Jubilee panel. Very equitable, quite inclusive, if you will. I was going to bring that up at one point, but I think I got just distracted by, frankly, I was surprised by the people there.
Yeah.
Because incidentally, it's not in order. If you watch it, you can see like they switched the order of the whole thing. And so rather early on, I was like, ooh, what's going on here? There was a couple people that got cut out who were just completely interesting. And so I was a little bit like, wait, what? There was a moment where I'm like, what if this isn't a real thing? What if this is just like one of those like a prank shows?
Right.
But Tomoff Link. Happy Fun Day Monday, folks. For context, I'm a civil servant. Here in Britain, Starmer's government has announced plans to incentivize supposedly underperforming civil servants to leave their jobs. These are just plans, and Starmer's government tries to invent ways to crap on civil servants every 3 minutes. But this is new low, LOL. It's just a matter of time until the Labour Party conference is just 3 days of Andrew Tate running around stage with a chainsaw. Cal Market. ICE has been detaining artists along with activists. I've been thinking that this is not happenstance. Targeting artists really benefits a corporate fascist takeover. Here's a link to the most recent artist detention. We'll check that out. R.E. Burke. We'll look that up. 5 more. Australian. If you privatize Social Security, it would look like Australian superannuation. Don't do it. Tim Pool's beanie. When I watch Sam talk about Social Security and Surrounded, I can't help but think Michael reacting to it and doing his Sam voice the entire time. 3 more. Jobby Boonier. Michael Jamal Brooks is throwing off all the data based on name samples in this gentleman's experiments. 2 more. Courier 11 second. Tracing. This means Elon has hired Angela Jolie to type furiously on a clacky keyboard in a dark room. Tesla has always made money by carbon credits, and of course the vast majority of Tesla purchases were directly subsidized by government on top of that.
Love market solutions and how they have zero consequences down the line.
And the final IM of the day, truck nuts. The continuing resolutions have been a major way the Republicans have cut the Social Security Administration budget. We have been on constant CRs since the first Trump administration and have not had enough funding to hire employees at the rate of attrition. Yep. I mean, I would imagine that's across the board. Bradley, Matt, Emma, great job today. Folks, see you tomorrow.